There's spider webs on all the bushes, leaves on the ground, a candy aisle in every store, and a concerning amount of decorations on your neighbor's lawn.
That can only mean it's time for Halloween.
But with its jack-o'-lanterns, tricks, treats, costumes, and apple bobbing, you'd be hard-pressed to find any religious context in the modern celebration. So if you're confused how a Celtic bonfire ritual became a global excuse to sell overpriced costumes to children, you'd be in good company, as the answer lies somewhere in the true history of Halloween. Backing up the clock 2,000 years, most everyone begins these videos by mentioning Samhain, a day that marked the end of summer on the Celtic solar calendar. The Celts themselves were an Iron Age cultural group in northwestern Europe, loosely bound together by a shared system of language and beliefs. Their descendants can still be found today in Brittany, Wales, Ireland, and Scotland, as well as Cornwall and parts of northern Spain. Samhain, like the Celtic spring festival of Beltane, was seen by the people as a time when the boundary to the other world thinned. This meant that the Ishi, the spirits or fairies, could more easily cross between this world and the next and bring their tricks back with them. To avert their wrath, offerings of food and drink, modern treats, were left on village doorsteps to satiate any spirit looking to spread their mischief and tricks. It was even believed that the souls of the dead would return to visit their families this one night of the year, and so places were set at the dinner table to welcome back deceased relatives. You can see remnants of this celebration in the Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead in Latin America, which isn't meant to be a spooky event, but a time to come together and remember the loved ones that have passed on before you. Prayers would be offered for their souls, and then the eating, drinking, and games would begin, with well-known events like apple bobbing,
which has its own curious Halloween history.
Sometimes called Snap Apple, it dates back to the Roman occupation of Britain, when the conquering army merged their own celebration of the fertility goddess Pomona on November 1st with the Celtic festival of Samhain. Young unmarried people would hover over a tub and try to bite into an apple floating in the water. Their success would predict future marriages in the upcoming year or the number of children they would have. Much like a bouquet thrown at weddings, it all seems a bit silly now, but remember, this is from an era where people still lived spread out over huge areas of land, and travel was rare. Festivals like Halloween brought together families from faraway villages and farms, and if it wasn't for fun games like bobbing for apples, your great-great-grandparents may never have even met each other. Huge bonfires have been a part of Halloween feasts and celebrations from the very start. The word bonfire is even derived from the Anglo-Saxon bone fire, literally a fire fed with the bones of animals. Their broken and charred bits would be used for divination, while torches lit from the fire were often carried sunwise around homes and fields to protect them from the coming frost, mimicking the journey of the sun with the hope that it would hold back the decay and darkness of winter. These same practices were even later encouraged by Christian missionaries, who told them to light the bonfires to instead keep away the devil. More practically, the Celts were a pastoral people, and the celebration of Samhain coincides with the time cattle and sheep were moved from their summer pastures to a place closer to home for the winter,
and any excess livestock would be slaughtered to be eaten during the cold months ahead. But something had to be done with all those extra bones lying around, hence the bonfire, which soon spawned new traditions of its own. In Scotland, young men were known to paint their faces with the soot and ashes of the bonfire, then go about the village house to house, threatening to do mischief if they weren't welcomed with a treat. Using soot to disguise one's face against enemies both real and spectral has a long history in Gaelic culture, and most cite that the blackened face in this ritual is a relic of a time when celebrants would smear a bonfire's ashes on themselves for protection in the dark night and success in upcoming raids and hunts. Dressing in costume and going door to door for treats has been a part of Halloween since at least the 16th century. Mumming, or guising as it's called, involves dressing in costume to perform snippets of a comedic play in exchange for sweets even today. But as these plays often feature Moorish or African characters, there is also a tradition of blackface associated with the performances. which has led to controversy and outright bans of the face painting in recent years. The practice of children visiting door to door, though, began in England, where groups of poor people called alms seekers, who were often children, would travel around the village during All Hallowtide, collecting soul cakes in exchange for prayers for the souls of the giver's friends and relatives. Often they would wear costumes as they walked around town, as it was believed the souls of the departed wandered the earth until All Saints' Day, and Halloween was the last chance for the dead to gain vengeance before moving on to the next world. To avoid being recognized by any avenging ghosts, people would don masks and costumes to disguise their identities. Some believe this is a Samhain remnant, where villagers would impersonate spirits and take gifts on their behalf. Local church parishes, though, rather than outright banning the custom and costumes, encouraged children to instead dress as saints when they went visiting for treats. These folk traditions were slowly pushed to the edges of the Gaelic world as Christianity co-opted October 31st for itself. Samhain became All Hallows Even, or the night before All Saints' Day. As for the name, it's only a matter of dropping the V to become modern Halloween. But in the Gaelic-speaking world at least, Halloween never really lost its pagan overtones. Guising masqueraders still carried around spooky carved lanterns made out of scooped-out turnips as they visited homes around the village, to be rewarded with cakes, fruit, and money. Scary faces were carved into these turnip lanterns, and the grotesque creations were carried to ward off evil spirits and frighten small children on the street, though most were simply set on windowsills to keep any lingering ghouls out of your home. These carved turnips are the forerunner of modern jack-o'-lanterns, and turnips were only replaced by pumpkins in the United States as the orange gourd was more plentiful and, frankly, easier to carve. These Halloween festivities were immortalized by the Scottish poet Robert Burns, who wrote of Highland families gathering together for games, pranks, storytelling, and dancing every October 31st. These treats and trickery persisted into the modern era, making their way alongside other traditions to the United States with Irish and Scottish immigrants. It's no coincidence that Halloween celebrations first appear in America shortly after the mass immigration of the Gaels in the 19th century. With as much as 10% of the United States reporting Scotch-Irish ancestry, the festival spread across North America with its settlers. Now, this quaint celebration from a corner of the world is one of the cornerstone holidays of the year, and its Celtic traditions are recognized in film and media throughout the world. So the next time a bunch of teenagers show up at your door and threaten to smash your pumpkin if you don't empty your candy bag, just remember that they're part of a tradition of rascalry that goes back thousands of years. And next time, keep a second bowl around full of just Tootsie Rolls, so the joke will be on them. Thanks for watching this real history of Halloween. If you found this interesting, you can find the history of other well-known holidays on this channel.